When I picked up the phone that morning, I expected my world to brighten. I had been waiting for this moment for weeks, saving every ounce of excitement, polishing it like a pearl in the dark. My son Daniel was getting married. I dialed his number with hands that had folded his baby clothes, stirred his soup, signed permission slips, and written countless checks for rent and groceries these last few years. As the line rang, I smiled to myself, already picturing the flowers, the music, the way I would hold his arm as he walked into the next chapter of his life. He answered, his voice soft but hurried, almost as if he had been expecting me. "Hi, Mom." I couldn't help the joy that bubbled into my tone. "Sweetheart, I've been dying to know. Tell me, when is the wedding? I want to mark the date properly. I've already set aside money for a nice gift, and I want to make sure I get the florist booked early. You know how fast those things go." I waited. I expected laughter, maybe a sheepish apology for not telling me sooner, followed by a date I would carve into my heart. Instead, it wasn't my son who answered. It was her, Claire. Her voice slid into the call like oil across water, smooth, glistening, impenetrable. "Oh, Margaret," she said, and I swear I could hear her smile before I could see it. "We already got married yesterday. We only invited special people." The words did not fall. They struck. They hit me as though someone had opened the freezer door and thrown a bucket of ice water over my head. Special people. I stood there, silent, the phone pressed against my ear, its weight suddenly unbearable. My son didn't speak. He didn't correct her, didn't rush to say, "No, Mom, of course you're special. You'll always be special." Instead, the silence stretched. My knees trembled. My own living room, the house that had held birthdays and Christmas mornings, exam night tears and first day of school photographs, suddenly felt foreign, as if I had walked into a stranger's life. I swallowed, though the lump in my throat refused to move. "I see." My voice sounded far away, like it belonged to another woman. Claire's tone was calm, sweet, almost condescending, as if she were explaining something obvious to a child. It was very small, you understand, just intimate. We didn't want a big fuss, just the two of us, the officiant, and, well, the people closest to us. Closest. I, who had for 3 years paid their monthly rent of $500. I, who had bought their sofa, their table, their refrigerator. I, who had filled their kitchen when it echoed with emptiness. I, who had handed over money for their wedding rings, their honeymoon plans, their endless emergencies. I was not close enough. I was not special. "Mom," Michael finally said, his voice thin and rehearsed, like lines from a play he didn't believe in. It wasn't about excluding anyone. It was just small. You know how things are. But I knew he was lying. I knew because I had already seen the photos. Yes, the photos. Social media, the cruelest of mirrors, had shown me everything. Claire in her white gown, the very dress I had helped pay for, with the $800 she'd asked for personal expenses last month. Her parents beaming with pride, her siblings raising champagne glasses, cousins clapping with joy, and Michael, my son, smiling, 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 surrounded by her family, their family, not ours. And me, I wasn't even a ghost in the background. I wasn't in a single frame. The pale pink dress I had bought for myself, the one I had chosen carefully for the occasion, hung uselessly in my closet, mocking me with its silence. I had spent $200 on that dress, convincing myself that in photographs I would look radiant, proud, part of something sacred. Shoes, too. New, elegant, bought with the same trembling excitement a girl might feel before her first dance. Now they sat in the dark, relics of a celebration I had never been allowed to attend. I thought of the hours I had spent scrubbing the corners of my house until it shone, preparing for the possibility that they might want to gather here after the ceremony. I thought of the $1,000 I had withdrawn from my savings, folded carefully into an envelope, ready to press into Michael's hand as my wedding gift to him and his new bride. I thought of how I had called my sister Evelyn in Chicago, breathless with excitement, telling her, "It's happening. Michael is finally settling down." All of it, every single detail, collapsed in that moment with Claire's 4 poisoned words. Only special people. I gripped the phone tighter, though it felt like holding a stone too heavy for my bones. My son's silence cut deeper than her cruelty. For a second, I almost begged. I almost asked, "Why wasn't I there? Am I not your mother? Did I not give enough? Have I not been enough?" but the words strangled themselves before they could escape. I see, I repeated. And then, because I had no other armor left, I whispered, Congratulations. My son murmured a thank you that sounded like dust. Claire gave a polite little laugh, as though I had just excused myself from a party early. We'll see you soon, Margaret, she said. The line went dead. I stood in the silence of my house, staring at the sofa they had once begged me to buy. Claire had chosen the color, pale beige that stained too easily. She had sprawled across it often, sipping lattes I had paid for, scrolling her phone while I cooked dinner for them both. Now I saw her there again in my mind's eye, her smile sharp, her words colder than the November air outside. Special people. I sank into the armchair and set the phone on my lap. Though my hands trembled too violently to hold it, my chest ached, my breath came in uneven waves. The dress in my closet, the money folded in its envelope, the clean house waiting for laughter that never came, all of it became heavy ghosts pressing down on me. For the rest of the day, I drifted through the house like a stranger. I wiped counters that were already spotless. I rearranged pillows that no one would lean on. I checked the refrigerator, full of groceries I had bought in anticipation of their visit, food for a celebration that would never happen. When the sun sank, I sat at the table, set one plate, and ate in silence. Every clink of the fork against the porcelain was louder than any conversation. I thought of my husband, gone all these years, and how he would have looked at me with those steady eyes, those hands that always knew when to hold mine. I thought of the boy Michael used to be, the boy who ran into my arms after falling from his bicycle, who whispered, Don't let go, Mama, at every swimming lesson. Where had he gone? The night deepened. My body ached, but sleep refused me. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, the words echoing over and over. Only special people. I realized then that the wound wasn't just exclusion. It wasn't just the insult. It was the truth underneath it, the undeniable crushing truth that to my son and his wife I was not special at all. I was useful. I was convenient. I was their safety net, their purse, their provider. But I was not cherished. I was not wanted. And that realization split something inside me. A week passed, 7 long days stitched together with silence and the faint ringing of words that would not die. Only special people. I could still hear Claire's voice, velvet wrapped around steel, cutting me open without raising itself even half a note. Each morning, I rose and brewed my coffee as I always had. The rich scent filled the kitchen, drifting into the corners of the house, but the comfort it once gave me had soured. I stared at the steam curling upward, wondering how much of my life I had boiled away for others. I tried to busy myself, polishing shelves that already gleamed, watering plants that didn't need it, sorting linens I barely used. The house was clean enough to pass inspection by angels, yet I wandered through it restless, angry, and hollow. Every time my gaze fell on the pale pink dress in my closet, a fist of humiliation tightened in my stomach. And then, exactly 7 days after that brutal revelation, the phone rang. The name flashing on the screen made my chest constrict. Claire. For a moment I thought of letting it ring, but habit is a chain forged over years of servitude. Against my better judgment, I answered. Her voice was no longer honeyed confidence. It was strained, trembling at the edges, the mask slipping. Margaret, thank God, I was hoping you'd pick up. I stayed silent, waiting. The rent, she began, and I could almost see her pacing, her manicured nails tapping against her phone. It's overdue. The landlord is threatening us. He says if we don't pay this week, he'll kick us out. You must have forgotten the transfer. Forgotten. The word almost made me laugh, as if all those years I had rushed to the bank, rearranged my bills, counted coins in my purse to scrape together their rent, as if any of that could be forgotten. I let the silence grow heavy between us. Finally I spoke, calm and deliberate. Claire, do you remember what you told me last week? She faltered. What do you mean? You said the wedding was only for special people. Do you remember that? Her breath caught. Margaret, I didn't mean it the way it sounded. You've always been special to us. You're like a second mother to me. Second mother. The phrase dripped with falseness, sweetened only by desperation. Interesting, I said softly, because when the most important day of my only son's life came, I wasn't even a shadow in the room, not a guest, not a witness, not even a thought. Margaret, please, she begged. We're under so much pressure right now. Michael just started a new job and I cut her off. Claire, didn't I warn you? I only help special people. The silence that followed was so deep I could hear my own heartbeat. For the first time in years, it was not me trembling on the line. It was her. When she finally spoke, her voice cracked. I don't understand. You've always helped us. You can't just stop now. I can, I said, surprising myself with the steadiness of my tone. And I have. Margaret, she pleaded, please don't do this to us. We've always counted on you. Yes, I replied, and that's the problem. I hung up before she could respond. My hand trembled slightly as I set the phone down, but it wasn't weakness, it was adrenaline. For the first time in years, I had drawn a line. That night, I sat on my bed with a notebook, a pen, and the weight of 3 years pressing down on me. I began writing, line after line, number after number, adding up the cost of my foolish generosity. Rent, $500 every month, 36 months. $18,000. Groceries and supplies, about $200 a month, $7,200. Gifts, birthdays, Christmas, anniversaries, at least $3,000. Claire's medical emergencies, $800. The car loan they never repaid, $2,500. The air conditioner repair, $600. Furniture, $1,200. When I added it all, the number glared at me from the page, $33,400. $33,400. Money I had siphoned out of my retirement, money my late husband had worked a lifetime to leave me so I could live my later years in peace. Money that was supposed to carry me through the rest of my days had been used to cushion the life of 2 people who couldn't even bother to invite me to their wedding. My chest ached as I looked at the sum, but it wasn't grief. It was fury. Fury at myself for being so blind, so desperate for crumbs of affection that I mistook exploitation for love. I wept, but my tears were different this time. Not the weak, aching sobs of a woman begging for scraps. These were tears of rage, of awakening, of something in me that had been dormant for too long, finally clawing its way to the surface. The next morning, I rose before dawn. I washed my face and stared at my reflection in the bathroom mirror. The same tired eyes, the same wrinkles carved by years of labor and sacrifice. But something new flickered there too. A hardness, a clarity I hadn't seen in myself for decades. I brewed coffee, but this time I didn't check my phone, didn't wait for Michael to call with excuses, didn't hope for apologies that would never come. I drank slowly, savoring each sip as if reclaiming it from the endless cups I'd poured into them. Then I took the notebook with the numbers, slipped it into my purse, and went to the bank. The branch manager, Mr. Klein, had known me for years. He greeted me with a smile, as he always did, but when I asked to cancel the automatic transfers to Michael and Claire, his eyebrows lifted in surprise. "Are you sure, Mrs. Evans?" he asked gently. "These transfers have been, well, consistent." "Yes," I said. "I'm sure," he hesitated. "Did something happen?" I almost laughed at the simplicity of the question. Did something happen? Everything had happened. "What happened," I told him, my voice steady, "is that I finally opened my eyes." He processed the paperwork while I sat there, my phone buzzing nonstop in my purse. Michael. Claire. Michael again. I didn't look. I didn't need to. I already knew what the messages would say. "We need you. We're in trouble. Please help us." When Mr. Klein handed me the documents confirming the transfers were canceled, I felt a weight lift off me. For the first time in 3 years, my money was my own. As I left the bank, I turned off my phone completely, and for the first time in a long time, I walked home not as a provider, not as an invisible support beam holding up someone else's roof, but as myself, Margaret Evans, a woman who was finally learning to say no. That evening, I sat at my kitchen table, the same table where I had planned countless surprises for Michael, counted money for Claire's whims, and cried silently when they treated me like a burden. This time, I spread out my bank statements, my will, and my savings accounts. I resolved then and there to protect myself, no matter what storm came next. Because deep down, I knew this was only the beginning, and when the storm came, I would not cower. I would stand. The silence after cutting them off didn't last. For a day or two, I savored it. My phone stayed dark, tucked into a drawer like a caged animal. I walked through my house lighter, though the memories of their demands still lingered in every corner. I made myself a proper dinner for the first time in months. Salmon and roasted vegetables, food I had denied myself so I could afford their whims. I even poured a glass of wine, toasting the quiet. But predators don't let go of a source so easily. 3 days after canceling the transfers, I came home from an afternoon walk and froze. 3 cars stood in front of my house: Michael's, Claire's, and one I didn't recognize, sleek and gray, the kind of car that smelled of lawyers and paper. Through the window, I saw movement inside. My house, my sanctuary. My blood ran cold. I had given Michael and Claire keys years ago, trusting them, believing they would respect my home. Now, they were inside uninvited, rifling through what was mine. I took a deep breath, steadied my shaking hands, and unlocked the door. The scene inside burned itself into my memory. Michael sat slumped on the sofa, his head in his hands, looking both angry and ashamed. Claire paced back and forth like a restless cat, her voice low but sharp. And at my dining table, calmly flipping through my documents as though they belonged to him, sat a stranger in a gray suit. My papers, my will, my savings, spread out under hands that had no right to touch them. "What is happening here?" I asked, louder than I intended. My voice cracked through the room like a whip. They all turned. For a moment, I swear they looked at me as if I were the intruder in my own house. Claire was the first to speak, her tone pitched to sound relieved. "Margaret, thank God you're here. We need to talk." I narrowed my eyes. "Who is this man?" She gestured toward him as if presenting a prize guest. "This is Mr. Fisher. He's a family law attorney. We wanted his advice about your situation." My situation. The words rolled around my skull like a foreign coin. "What situation?" I asked, forcing calm into my voice. "I am doing just fine." Michael finally raised his head. His eyes that once begged me to read just one more bedtime story, were frantic now. "Mom, the bank told us you canceled the transfers. They said you blocked our access. We don't understand why you would do that." Before I could answer, the lawyer stood, extending a hand I did not shake. His smile was rehearsed, professional, utterly hollow. "Mrs. Evans, I'm Dr. Fisher. Your children are worried about your well-being. They asked me to assess whether you may need assistance managing your finances." I walked straight past his hand and gathered my papers from the table, clutching them to my chest. "These are private," I said firmly. "You have no right to review them." "Mom," Michael said, his voice slipping into the condescending tone I'd heard too often in recent years, "you've been acting strangely, cutting us off, not answering our calls. We think maybe the stress or the loneliness, it's making you confused." Confused. The words sliced through me like ice. Claire came closer, reaching for my hand with a softness I recognized as counterfeit. "Margaret, honey, we just want to help. At your age, it's normal to experience, well, confusion, forgetfulness. We're worried about you." And then it hit me like lightning. This wasn't about care. It was about control. They wanted to paint me as incompetent, to force guardianship over me, to seize my accounts. The same woman who told me I wasn't special enough to attend her wedding now wanted to declare me senile to steal what little I had left. "I am not confused," I said, louder than I meant. The room went still. "I am clearer than I've been in years, and you three are leaving. Now." Mr. Fisher cleared his throat, adopting his reasonable lawyer voice. "Mrs. Evans, if your children believe your decision-making is impaired, the law allows them to petition for guardianship. I suggest you cooperate. It will make things easier for everyone." I let out a laugh, sharp, bitter, almost cruel. "Impaired decision-making? The only decision I've made is to stop financing 2 adults who treat me like trash. If that is impairment, then I'm proud to be impaired." Claire stiffened, her mask cracking. "We never treated you badly," she snapped. "You're part of our family, and everything you have will belong to us one day anyway. We're just speeding up the process." There it was, the naked truth, stripped of pretense. I stared at her, at the coldness in her eyes, and felt something inside me harden beyond repair. "Out," I said, pointing to the door. "All of you, out of my house." Michael stood, his face twisted like a child denied a toy. "Mom, you can't just do this. We have obligations. The rent, the car, the credit card you co-signed." "I can," I cut him off, my voice rising for the first time. "And I will. I've paid rent that wasn't mine, filled fridges in homes where I wasn't welcome, financed lives that had no space for me. Enough." The lawyer tried once more, sliding a folder toward me. "A power of attorney. This would allow them to manage your finances until you're stable again." I didn't even open it. I snatched the folder and dropped it straight into the trash. The only transition happening here is yours to the front door. Claire's eyes brimmed with tears, not grief, but fury. You can't do this to us. We counted on you. We made plans based on your support. Obligations built on my money, I said coldly, not on my well-being, not on my happiness, not on love, only on money, and now that it's gone, suddenly I'm a confused old woman. How convenient. Michael tried again, stepping toward me, but I moved back, keeping the table between us. He wasn't my sweet boy anymore. He was a grown man who saw me as an obstacle between him and his comfort. Mom, he said, voice straining with false remorse. We made mistakes. The wedding. It was Claire's nerves. I was under pressure. But we can fix this if you'll just be reasonable. Reasonable? I spat the word like poison. Reasonable means financing your life while you erase me from it. Reasonable means swallowing the pain of being excluded from the most important day of your life. No, I am done being reasonable. The lawyer began packing his papers, his expression resigned. Mrs. Evans, this isn't over. If you continue making irrational financial decisions, a judge can rule you unfit. Guardianship is an option. Do your research, I said sharply, meeting his gaze. I managed my household for 40 years. I raised a son alone after my husband died. I supported myself and them until last week. I am not incompetent. I am not your prey. Claire's tears dried into a glare. This won't stay like this, Margaret. We have rights. Then hire all the lawyers you like, I said, with your own money, because mine is no longer available to fund your tantrums. They left in a storm of wounded dignity, muttering threats as they went. Before stepping outside, Michael turned one last time. This will end badly for you, he warned. You'll end up alone, no one to care for you when you really need it. I looked at him, my son, my boy, my betrayer, and spoke with a clarity that pierced the air. I am already alone, Michael. The difference is that now it is by choice, not neglect. When the door closed behind them, I stood in the middle of my living room, surrounded by silence. But it wasn't the silence of abandonment. It was the silence of freedom. That night, I didn't sleep. Not from sorrow, but from adrenaline. I lay awake, planning. If they wanted war, I would give them one. Not with tears or guilt, but with intelligence, with strength. At dawn, I rose and dressed. My first stop was Mr. Weber's office, an attorney I trusted. Unlike Fisher, he had a reputation for protecting the elderly from exploitation. After listening to my story, he leaned back, his face grave. Margaret, what your children attempted is called elder financial abuse. It's a crime. And the fact they entered your house and reviewed your documents without consent, that's another violation. We'll document everything, every transfer, every loan, every request. We'll change your will to protect your assets, and we'll secure your accounts. Relief and sorrow crashed over me together. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't overreacting. This wasn't just family drama. This was war. And for the first time in years, I was ready to fight. When I stepped out of Mr. Weber's office, the sunlight felt different on my skin, cleaner somehow, as if the sky itself had opened a window and let the stale air out of my life. I stood on the pavement with my handbag snug beneath my arm and my document zipped tight inside, and I breathed. I hadn't realized how long I'd been holding my breath for other people. On the bus home, I watched the city move past in glassy strips. The bakery with its trays of sugared knots, the florist rinsing stems in a blue bucket, the boy on a scooter whistling something bright and off-key. It all looked ordinary. It all looked possible. I didn't go straight home. I went to the hardware store. The bell above the door chimed the way it had chimed for 40 years, every time my husband and I needed another box of screws or a roll of tape or some little thing to keep the world from falling apart. Mr. Summers still kept the counter, older now, but with the same patient eyes. "Margaret," he said, delighted. "Haven't seen you since. Well, since before." He didn't finish the sentence. People rarely do when a life splits into a before and an after. "I need to change my locks," I told him. "All of them. And I need something better than the good enough I've been living with." He looked me over, the way men who know tools look at a wall before they drill into it. "We've got a deadbolt you could run a truck at," he said finally. "And we can send my son to install them today if you're in a pinch." "I'm in a pinch," I said. It felt good to say it plainly. While he rang up the hardware, his son, Ethan, broad-shouldered and polite, came in from the back with a crate of boxed kits. "Ma'am," he said, "I can be there in an hour." "There's more," I added, lowering my voice. "Do you install security systems, cameras, the kind you can check from your phone?" "We do," Ethan said. "Wired or wireless, motion alerts, door and window sensors." "I'll take the whole orchard," I said. "Every apple on the tree." He smiled at that. "We'll make it right." An hour later, I was home, standing on my front step while Ethan unpacked his tools. The late morning air smelled like cut grass and something sweet from a neighbor's kitchen. I felt the nerves trembling under my skin, but they weren't fear. They were readiness. Inside, he started with the front door. The old lock came out with a sigh, screws grown sleepy from years of revolving. The new deadbolt slid into place with a weighty click, a sound I wanted to bottle and wear as perfume. Protection, with top notes of dignity and steel. "Back door, too," I said, "and the side door, and the tiny basement hatch no one used, and the garage door with its forgotten rattle." I watched each old piece drop into Ethan's bucket like a loose tooth, history extracted. "Do you want to rekey the window latches as well?" he asked. "Yes," I said, shocking even myself with the speed of the answer. "And let's put a sensor on every window, even the ones that stick, especially the ones that stick." He moved quickly, careful, narrating only the essentials. When he was done with the locks, he mounted the cameras, one above the front door, one near the driveway, one watching the garden gate where Michael, at 7, had once tried to run away with a backpack full of toy cars and crackers. I thought of that boy, his quick tears, his soft forehead pressed to mine, and I let the memory pass through me like a small weather system. Rain, then sun. "You'll get notifications on your phone," Ethan explained, syncing the feed to the app and showing me how to swipe through angles. "If anyone approaches or if there's movement at night. And this one," he pointed at a dome camera tucked discreetly in the corner of the living room ceiling, "records inside. You can set privacy schedules if you're not comfortable with it on all the time." "I want it on," I said. "Comfort has often lied to me." He nodded, not judging, not prying. It felt like a grace I hadn't known I needed. When he left, I stood in the hallway and turned my new keys over in my hand. They were smooth and bright, as if they hadn't learned yet what it means to be used. I slid one onto my keyring. It chimed against the others, a single bright note. I made tea and took it into the dining room. My papers were still stacked there, thick as a winter quilt. Bank statements, insurance policies, my will, the newly drafted power of nothing for no one. I put them in my lockbox and spun the dial with steady fingers. Then I tucked the lockbox into the hall closet behind the photo albums. I knew better than to hide anything in the place Michael had rifled first. The doorbell rang. My heart did its old trick of trying to climb out. The camera sent a crisp image to my phone, a woman in a navy coat, salt and pepper hair tucked neatly behind one ear, holding 2 paper cups of coffee. I tapped the mic. "Yes?" The woman startled, then laughed at herself, glancing up at the camera. "Margaret? It's Eleanor. Next door? Oh, I suppose this is how civilized people visit now." She lifted 1 cup. "Peace offering." I heard the drilling and thought you might like a caffeine truce. I opened the door. "Eleanor Brooks, I haven't seen you since the neighborhood barbecue the summer the grill caught fire. And you put it out with the garden hose while half the men argued about how to do it." "Yes, that's the one." She handed me the cup. "I worried the other day. I heard voices, raised. Are you all right?" It took me a beat to answer. I'm not used to straightforward concern. It arrives like an unexpected bouquet, lovely but belonging somehow to some other deserving person. "I am now," I said. "Come in." We sat at my kitchen table. She didn't look around at my things. She looked at me. It is striking how rare that is. "I had an episode like yours," she said, not unkindly, not gossipy, simply human. "My son and his wife. Money was a highway between our houses, always running downhill toward theirs. When I put up a barricade, they called it a landslide. They brought a lawyer, too. Children learn that trick now. It's on the internet with the recipes." "Mr. Weber called it elder financial abuse," I said, the word still tasting new, like I was a headline. "You are a person," she said softly, "with a life that doesn't need a headline to be real." I stared at her hands, small, capable, the knuckles tenderly swollen with time. "I changed my locks." She smiled. I noticed. The sound carried like a hymn. We talked for a while about tomatoes that won't stay upright, the dog 2 houses down that howls like a blues singer, the deli on Grove Street where the pastrami could raise the dead. When she left, she touched my shoulder with 2 fingers. "You did the right thing," she said. "You'll doubt it at 3 in the morning, but morning comes." After she left, I called my sister. Evelyn picked up on the second ring, breathless. "Are you all right?" "I've had a feeling, Margaret, and you know how my feelings are. They're like weather reports, correct and annoying." "I'm all right," I said, and then I told her. Not just the wedding, not just the insult, but the years before, the transfers, the emergencies, the soft little lies I told myself so I could sleep on a pillow stuffed with guilt and habit. I told her about the lawyer in my dining room with his tidy grin. I told her about the new locks, the cameras whose eyes never tire. She listened like a sister who remembered me at 12, at 20, at 40, who remembered me when I laughed more easily and loved without making a ledger. When I finished, she exhaled a long, careful breath. "God, Mags," she said, reverting to the childhood nickname that always makes me feel like my knees are scraped and I can run anyway. I wanted to say it so many times, but I didn't know how. They didn't talk about you like a person. It was always the money, as if your love were a debit card with a limitless pin. "It wasn't limitless," I said. "It was me." "Then make the limit yourself," she said. "Put your name on it, for once." We made a plan to see each other soon. I hung up and slept for an hour in the afternoon, the kind of nap that slides over you like a gentle tide and sets you down on a new shore. When I woke, I did something I hadn't done in too long. I went to the salon. "Margaret," Cynthia cried, her scissors paused midair above another woman's head. "I thought you'd eloped with a better hairdresser." "Infidelity doesn't suit me," I said, "but I have been unfaithful to myself." She wrapped me in a cape the color of rain and tilted my chin toward the mirror. "So, what kind of woman are we revealing today?" "Someone who belongs to herself." The answer came out before I could dress it up. She set to work. The snip-snip was soothing, like someone gathering loose ends from a long, rough tale. We talked about nothing and everything, the way women do when the chair is a confessional and the mirror is kinder than the world. She colored the gray I wanted colored and honored the gray I wanted to keep. "You've earned these," she said, touching the silver along my temple. "Some metals you don't trade in." When she spun me toward the window light, I startled a little. There I was, still me, but returned to myself, as if the mirror had been miscalibrated for years and suddenly the dial clicked into place. I tipped well. It wasn't extravagance, it was gratitude. For the first time in years, I spent money that made me feel more rather than less. On the way home, my phone buzzed in my bag, unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. A minute later, another call, then a text. "Pick up. It's important." I viewed the message on the lock screen, not inviting it into my day. The next text came harder. "We can come by at 7. We're outside." I stopped walking. I opened the camera app and checked the front door feed. There they were. Michael, hands jammed into his coat pockets, jaw taut. Claire, lips pressed thin as a paper cut. They looked smaller on my screen, like figurines placed where I used to keep my collection of porcelain birds. I stood on the sidewalk for a long breath and then another. I did not hurry. I did not run. At my door, I took out the keys, the new keys, and slid one into the lock. The deadbolt turned with the confidence of a decision that wouldn't need to be made twice. I stepped inside and put my bags down on the hall table. Then I opened the app and tapped the microphone icon. "You can leave a note," I said, my voice carrying out through the tiny speaker above their heads. "I won't be opening the door." "Mom," Michael said, looking directly into the camera as if it were my eyes, "this is ridiculous. We're family. We should talk face to face." "You're right," I said. "We should have," I paused, "last week." Claire stepped forward, her smile sweet but chipped. "Margaret, let's not be dramatic. We just want to explain." "You explained already," I said. "You said your wedding was only for special people, and Michael said nothing. That was your explanation." Michael scrubbed a hand over his mouth. "Can we come inside? It's cold." "There are coats," I said. "You own them. Put them on." Claire's eyes flared. "This is petty." "This is private," I replied. I watched them argue silently for a few seconds. Then, to my astonishment, Claire bent to the doormat and lifted it. She reached for the flower pot, the porch light, the lip of the mailbox, searching for a spare key she had once relied on me to leave. It was like watching a magician rummage through empty air for a rabbit that had moved to a better life. "No keys under mats," I said, and couldn't keep the wryness from my voice. "Not anymore." Michael's gaze darted. "Mom!" "Right," I said quietly. "If you have something to say, write. Include apologies in complete sentences. Do not include invoices." I muted the mic and watched them stand there, shifting from foot to foot until finally they turned and went back to their car. As the engine started, I felt a wave move through me, leaving behind a low, steady hush. Not triumph, not victory, just the clean quiet of a room where something ugly has been carried out and the window has been opened. I made soup, lentils, carrots, the last of the celery that needed using. The knife moved easily in my hand. As the pot simmered, the house smelled like it used to on winter evenings when Michael was small and the world fit inside my 2 arms. I set a place for one and ate slowly, tasting every spice. After dinner, I took a photo of my new keys on the table next to my tea. I sent it to Evelyn with a single line. "They fit my hand." She sent back a heart and then, "Good. Now let your hand hold only what it chooses." It was late when I went to the bedroom, but I didn't get ready for sleep. I opened the top drawer of my dresser instead and took out the old envelope, thick paper, yellowing, my husband's handwriting on the front, for later. I had never had a later. I had made my life a long now for everyone else. I slit the envelope with a butter knife. Inside was a letter, creased and soft from years of being moved but not read. My husband's words were as steady as his hands had been. He wrote, "If you're reading this, I'm not there to say it out loud. Take care of yourself. Not as a slogan, not as a New Year's promise, but as a practice. You were a person before you were a wife, before you were a mother. If you forget, the world will gladly forget with you. Don't let it. Use our money to make your life softer, not smaller. If you need to say no, say it so the roof doesn't leak and the bed is warm and the woman in the mirror nods back at you. I trust you. Love R." I read it twice, then a third time, aloud, as if the room needed to know as well. I folded the letter and put it back, not because I was done with it, but because I wanted it to live close to my sweaters, to travel with me through seasons. Before bed, I opened the camera app one last time. The driveway lay quiet under the street lamp. The empty porch looked dignified, not lonely. In the reflection on the glass of the storm door, I caught a faint double image of myself, a woman outlined by her home. I turned off the light and slid into bed. Sleep came swiftly, without bargaining. In the morning, I would go to a different bank to open a new account with no history attached to anyone but me. I would call Mr. Grau Weber and set a date to update my will. I would put a small amount of cash in an envelope labeled "for joy," and I would learn to spend from it without asking anyone's permission. Maybe I would take a train somewhere with a museum and a chocolate shop. Maybe I would ask Eleanor to water my plants. But that was morning. Tonight I lay in the dark listening to the house. It sounded strong. It sounded like itself. And so, at last, did I. I have learned the shape of my own key, and I will not hand it to anyone who treats my life like a door they are entitled to open. The week after the locks were changed, the house no longer felt like a cage. It felt like mine again. The keys jangled in my pocket like a promise every time I left, every time I came home. Michael and Claire didn't vanish. They hovered like vultures, circling, waiting for me to stumble. Calls from numbers I didn't know. Notes slipped into my mailbox in familiar handwriting. Once, a bouquet of lilies appeared on the porch with no card. But the cameras caught Claire leaving them, her lips curled in something that was not a smile. I didn't touch the flowers. I let them wilt on the porch until they turned brown, and then I tossed them into the bin with the rest of the garbage. It was petty, and it was perfect. Mr. Weber, my lawyer, worked faster than I thought possible. We combed through years of transfers, every check, every receipt. He called it evidence. I called it my foolishness, bound in paper. "Margaret," he said gently, "this isn't just about money. This is about control. If they try again, and I assure you they will, we'll be ready." I nodded, though my throat ached with something heavier than gratitude. He was right. This wasn't about whether I had $33,000 left or gone. It was about whether I was a person in their eyes or a wallet with legs. One evening, just as I'd finished watering the hydrangeas in the yard. I saw Michael's car glide up to the curb. He stepped out alone this time, his shoulders hunched. He looked tired, older, a little thinner. My heart, traitorous as ever, clenched. He walked up the drive slowly, like a man approaching a grave. "Mom," he called, stopping just short of the porch steps. I didn't invite him closer. "Claire shouldn't have said that," he began, his voice low. "About special people. She was nervous. I should have defended you. I know that. I'm sorry." The words hung there. If they had come a year earlier, even a month earlier, I would have folded. I would have taken him inside, made coffee, handed him half my heart just for saying sorry. But now, I had lived through the silence that followed those poisoned words. I had seen the lawyer rifling through my papers. I had watched Claire tear up on my porch, not from love, but from fear of losing her safety net. "Michael," I said softly, "do you know what hurts more than not being invited to your wedding?" He frowned, confused. "What?" "That you let her say it, that you let her look me in the eye and tell me I wasn't special and you said nothing." He flinched, his gaze dropping to the pavement. "I was wrong." "Yes," I said, "you were." Silence stretched between us. The cicadas in the trees sang louder than our blood. Finally he said, "We're in trouble. The rent's behind. The bills are piling up. I can't keep up with the credit cards. Mom, I don't know what to do." I studied him. For a fleeting second I saw the boy he had been, lost, frightened, looking to me for guidance, but then I remembered the man he had become. The man who had expected his mother to solve adulthood for him, who had stood by while his wife erased me from his life. "I know what to do," I said. "You'll have to figure it out." His head snapped up. "Mom, please, just until we get back on our feet. You've always been there. You can't stop now." "I can," I said gently, "and I have." The porch light clicked on as the dusk deepened. It cast his face in sharp relief, pleading, angry, ashamed all at once. "You're going to regret this," he muttered finally. "One day you'll need us, and we won't be there." I straightened. "You already weren't." He didn't answer. He turned, walked back to the car, and drove away. I watched until the taillights disappeared. Then I went inside and locked the door, the deadbolt clicking like a drumbeat of victory. Weeks passed. My house became brighter, not because of new paint or curtains, but because the weight of expectation was gone. I cooked what I wanted. I bought books I had put off buying for years. I even signed up for a pottery class at the community center. My hands, so used to writing checks, learned again how to shape something from clay. I laughed, real laughter, the kind that startled me when it echoed through the house. I had forgotten the sound. Eleanor and I became companions of sorts. We had coffee on each other's porches, shared baked goods, and traded stories about our children's manipulations as if we'd stumbled into a secret sisterhood. "We're not mothers anymore," she joked once. "We're banks with wombs." We laughed until we cried. The final test came one afternoon when a letter arrived. Thick paper, formal seal, a notice from Fisher's law office. Michael and Claire had filed a petition claiming I was mentally unfit to handle my finances. The nerve. I took the letter straight to Mr. Weber. He read it, sighed, and smiled grimly. "As expected. But Margaret, you've kept meticulous records with me these past weeks. We'll crush this. They don't have a chance." And he was right. At the hearing, I sat straight-backed in the courtroom while Claire whispered furiously to Michael. Their lawyer droned on about confusion, forgetfulness, impaired judgment. Then Mr. Weber rose, calm as stone, and presented every document, every canceled transfer, every record of my independent transactions, even statements from neighbors and my sister affirming my clarity. When it was my turn, I looked the judge directly in the eye and said, "I may be 71 years old, Your Honor, but I am not senile. I've lived alone for over 20 years, managed my household, my savings, my health. I raised a son alone after my husband died. If anything, I am too clear, and clarity is what my son and his wife cannot tolerate, because it means my money is mine." The judge's gavel came down, petition denied. Michael wouldn't meet my eyes as they left. Claire shot me a look sharp enough to cut glass, but I didn't tremble, not anymore. That night I returned home, poured myself a glass of wine, and opened my husband's letter again. His words steadied me. Take care of yourself. Not as a slogan, but as a practice. I looked around my house, my fortress, my sanctuary. The cameras hummed quietly, the locks gleamed, The air smelled of fresh lilies I had bought for myself, not to make anyone else's life sweeter. I wasn't lonely. I was free. The days stretched into months, softer now. I traveled to Chicago to visit Evelyn, walking through museums and eating deep dish pizza, laughing until my cheeks hurt. I joined a book club, tried Tai Chi in the park, planted tomatoes that grew wild and messy but tasted like sunshine. Michael and Claire drifted farther and farther, their absence no longer an open wound, but a scar that no longer ached. I didn't block their numbers. I didn't need to. Calls came less and less until they stopped altogether. I had given them enough years. The rest belonged to me. One evening, Eleanor asked me, "Do you ever regret it? Cutting them off?" I thought about it carefully. I regret the years I spent trying to buy love, but not this. Never this. She nodded, her eyes warm. As the sun set, I sat on my porch with a cup of tea, the garden glowing gold around me. I thought of the little boy Michael had once been, the man he had become, and the woman I had finally chosen to be. For the first time in decades, I whispered aloud, "I am enough." And the silence that followed was not empty. It was full, full of peace, full of freedom, full of me. I am no longer their wallet, their witness, or their safety net. I am Margaret Evans, and I will never again apologize for belonging to myself.